Hello and welcome back, people. Welcome to Adventures with Truth. I am V, and we do not know what the fuck is coming. This year is gonna be crazy. That's what it feels like to me. Yep. Every day, sometimes I just think, why don't I just sit down and chill? Talk about, just good stuff. Make an episode which doesn't feel like it has to be, spread out into the world. Makes me think that every time we have just more pressing matters does not seem fair. But then again, life isn't fair. Things get in the way. Life gets in the way. Life is a bitch, some people say. Yep, that's what's up. So yeah, let's talk about it. So let me start by saying, I recently was surfing on the YouTube, trying to see what's happening, what are the topics that are people are talking about on the internet these days. What are the some of the more pressing matters that YouTubers are talking about, maybe journalists are talking about. And randomly I got into this video which was talking about the new broadcast bill, which is about to come into play. People have already signed off on it. It's not yet passed in the parliament, but the way things are going, the way some people are expecting majority of certain government, things are not looking great. Things are not looking great. Just to first give you the basic idea of it. The broadcast bill is, essentially it's a replacement for the cable network bill that we have. I think back in 1990s we had this, which essentially talks about how government can, censor certain topics or take away licenses of the broadcasting channels, be it news outlets, media, print media, cable, television, all that. So it has a bunch of rules that, of course, this is the kind of content you cannot promote, kind of content that you cannot show to the people. And of course, if you do, then there are some penal actions which can be taken by the government. Of course, doesn't sound all that bad, at least not on the surface. But then once you get to it, you realize this new broadcast bill that is being proposed. I mean, first of all, I really hope the Supreme Court does not allow this to fall, or rather get into place, be enacted, be a part of the new legislature that we have in this country, in India. But again, Supreme Court is not even, it's not able to get to every matter. There are so many matters that nowadays people just, it seems like the only hope is Supreme Court. People do not even expect a fair judgment or justice in their local courts, judiciary. People don't even wait for the verdict. They are already, filing petitions in the High Court, and even when they are filing, petitions in the High Court, they are only expecting it to get overturned, and so that eventually, finally, once they have gone through that process, they can, go to the Supreme Court, and hopefully Supreme Court will, bring them justice. But then again, it's not, Supreme Court's job to look into every matter. They cannot physically, humanly, get onto every matter. So let's talk about this bill. So I'll give you the crux of it. You can watch a lot of articles online. The Wire did an article, I think. I think NDTV was doing an article or bunch of videos about this topic on the internet. So according to this bill, all the online publications such as OTT platforms, be it Netflix, Amazon Prime, Hulu and everything, and other free portals, right? Including Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. All these platforms also have to abide by the rules. And it's not just the, corporations and media outlets. Even the small people who are independent, who are, just posting their own content on the channels, on these platforms, they too are, now come into the jurisdiction of this bill, which says essentially that the government has a right to censor anything which it seems well, not only against national security and threat, but it can also be deemed indecent by any person. And if that person so happens to report this particular content, anybody in the crazy mind happens to report it, and if the authorities feel like, yes, this person might be saying something that we do not like, now we have an option to go after them, which essentially means that these digital means where people, of course, people rant out, sometimes they say things that they should not say, but even the people who are trying to just ask questions, get more information on the topic, then these people are not no longer allowed to do so unless it is, of course, approved by the government. Yeah. And it's not just that, because in case that government, so-called, the people who should be governing us, helping us, taking care of us, protecting our right to expression as per the constitution, these people can deem any topic, of course, allegedly deem any topic which is not right, might be indecent now, and then not only they have the right to shut it down, but they can impose a hefty fine on this person, this media outlet, corporation, company, small business, journalist even, and fines, jail time, and they can even confiscate their gadgets, like this laptop I'm using, this phone I'm using, this mic I'm using. It becomes a part of the paraphernalia. Because of course, if you start treating anything, any kind of content, any questioning, any kind of journalism, or even just sharing your opinions, if that becomes a crime, then of course, by that logic, all these articles too can be, be taken into evidence and just be confiscated. Holy fucking shit, man. Holy fucking shit. And that's the thing about, indecency. Like, that was one of the things that worried me. But what is indecent? Of course, the culture is changing. People are, even the youth are especially, they're moving towards, a more Western ideology. The culture is evolving. So, of course, people are doing different things which may not have been a part of, Indian culture, especially not the modern Indian culture. Because the ancient Indian culture, people talk about it, but people don't even have a clue what the ancient Indian culture actually was. People think these tikas and these saris and all these staying very modest and traditional, that's what Indian culture was, Women should stay decent. What the fuck the decent means? Because if you are actually aware about the ancient Indian civilization, they had a lot of nudity going on. You can go to South India and you can see a bunch of temples which are thousands of years old, and even there you can see depictions of nudity. Women could have their nipples free. Now that is usually something we associate with Western cultures, where they have nude beaches, exhibitionism. People are free to show off their body, of course, within a certain limit, but they can do that. But if you are actually thinking about it, it's not Indian culture. That's what they say. I beg to differ, but hey, who am I? I'm just somebody who's trying to go on an adventure and see how far we can take the truth, how far this truth will do us good. Will it help us to get to a better place, a more progressive, more tolerant place? Or will it just serve as one of the many tools for the ones who are in power to control the ones who are not in power? And it's not even, specifying that any particular kind of government body will be put into place who can then, of course, see if this any kind of content is breaking the rules, or is it against our well-being of the country. No, of course not. Any Tom, Dick and Harry. We say Tom, Dick and Harry, but most of these times these people are gonna be dicks and assholes. But sure, let's call them Toms and Harrys and Janes and free man, Aam Aadmi. Even the term Aam Aadmi has got such a negative connotation these days, given how the party has been behaving in the past few years, but I don't want to go too much into that. You start criticizing the government too much and they find you're a problem, you might be put in jail for things that you might say. The things might be factual, but then again, what are facts? People are, finding it hard to even agree on the basic facts. So the way I see facts are objective realities, things which are actually taking place into the world that we live in, things that are based on concrete evidences, things that actually took place, and they are not just part of the narrative. It sounds crazy, Already, like yesterday, or rather on the last episode, which was about a week ago, we discussed about problems that people are facing with RTIs, journalists are facing. People are getting kicked out of the country. People are getting FIRs registered against them just for asking questions on the internet, and it can of course be labeled as, oh, this person is creating havoc, they're trying to incite violence, cause riots. But that is often not the case. I mean, if you are following the farmers protest that was happening there, the government was just shutting down internet in particular places. Now I get the feeling that of course there are a lot of anti-Semitic, anti-nationalist ideas which are going on. Some might even call it treason. But of course, shutting down the internet, shutting down certain apps, social medias, that's not exactly the spirit of democracy, as they say. And if you have done, of course, you might have read about it, done some research, India does not rank well in the freedom of press trust, or rather how much. If you talk about there's an index which is maintained about all the countries, about 180 countries are on there, and India ranks 161. We're barely above China, North Korea, Iran. Only these are the countries we are up above compared to some of the Western nations. We talk about becoming great superpower, but I don't think that we are, as a society, allowing the people to have great thoughts. And how do you become a great superpower if you do not have, tolerance for great thoughts? It's crazy. I mean, if you go into the details of this bill, I mean, anybody who's, essentially a government employee, or not even a government employee, you see somebody who does not agree with you on the internet, they can just, file a petition based on this broadcast bill. And that person might be, subject to all the legal shenanigans that government has to throw at you. I really hope, this broadcast bill does not put in play, but I mean, I guess we'll have to see what are the results of the election. I mean, I don't think, there are too many people who doubt that Mr. Narendra Modi will once again be our Prime Minister. The question is, how powerful a Prime Minister will he be? How many seats in the parliament will the BJP and the NDA will have? And that might, of course, determine what are some of the decisions that this government takes in their third term. People often, talk about all this Godi media and stuff, how media is not, talking against the Prime Minister. There's only a bunch of fools who are just trying to troll his actions on the internet. Be it the opposition, be it the India Alliance, people from Congress and all that. So, of course, political leaders will always have, an ability to say whatever they want to say. They might even have the ability to bend the facts. But other than that, the common man, somebody who's just trying to figure things out, they might not have all that abilities. They might not even have freedom of expression. So what does happen in that case? Of course, if people are, terrified that their things might be confiscated. I mean, so first of all, just, talk about the confiscation of things. I mean, this bill will actually allow people to take away your stuff. This neon or electric board, LED board you see behind me, this can be, considered as a part of the crime, which is just speaking truth out there, trying to find the truth, trying to make sense of it all, and it can be taken away. So that's a big problem. I mean, let me give you an example. For instance, there's a person. Now this person works very hard, he starts from nothing, or even if he starts from some lower middle class background, and he gets to a higher top, right? Financially, economically, socially. Now if this person has, so and so, buy a bunch of things, pay for them all legally, builds a business and everything. So he might buy a car, might buy a house, might buy a bunch of houses. Who knows? More power to them. But if someday this person loses their mind, or they are, put in a situation where this person might end up taking somebody's life, killing somebody. So what do we do then? We put the person in jail. Of course, we put them on a trial, and of course both sides can put their points. But of course, if this person is convicted, we are going to put them in jail, put them behind bars, and this person will be made to serve the sentence, however long it may be. But we do not just go and take away all the houses and cars and everything they might have built, right? They have next of kin, they have families, so families are not exactly evicted, because the point is to punish the person. But when it comes to confiscation, we do not confiscate their entire lives. I mean, sure, in certain cases you might see that assets and bank accounts are frozen, but once all the legal procedure is being carried out, once it has been completed and the person has been convicted, or maybe they have been let go by the court, if they figure out this person was not guilty and maybe he should be given a second chance. So even in those heinous, or rather extremely violent crimes, we do not just take away all the things. The government does not just take away all the things. But for talking on the internet, trying to ask questions, trying to gain awareness and then spread awareness about a particular topic, should it be considered a crime? I think not. And most of all, these things should not be confiscated, because essentially when you do that, you are not even just punishing the people for expressing themselves freely. You are taking away their ability to do so that they might not be able to do anything similar in the future, which is just not how things work. Because if you want to punish a criminal, if you want to punish a murderer, you put them in jail. You don't chop off their limbs. Well, unless you are a Sharia country, which is kind of insane, but luckily we are not there yet. At least not yet. So hopefully, we'll keep our fingers crossed and our hopes high. Hopes high and precautionary measures high too. Gotta be careful. Always be careful. So we do not, of course, hurt this person physically in a way that, oh, you committed a murder, now let's just cut off your arms and legs, make you a vegetable, so that now we can be sure you will never commit murder again. Of course not. The point is to make this person, essentially go through, or rather be removed from the society, and then once their sentencing is done, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years, whatever that is, you give them a right to go back into the society and then see how they behave. Of course, if they repeat that offense, they might be liable to once again be convicted and given a punishment, whatever is necessary, whatever is deemed necessary. But you don't act out in a way that you just take away this person's liability, because this person has to be liable for their actions, and it is not the position of the government to ensure that we'll completely take away their abilities. And what happens when the fear of being legally persecuted is taken away from the people? Because if people are not allowed to say what they think and they feel, then eventually they'll stop thinking that things. Jordan Peterson, I think, has said it very wisely. If you falsify your expression, your words, you will eventually falsify your own thoughts. Even if you hear about, or you have known about, the case of Muhammad Ali, the boxer, one of the greatest, he even believed that, if I keep saying it enough that I am the greatest of all time, sooner or later people will start believing it. And that's the thing, if you start censoring your own self, because self-censorship is probably the worst kind of censorship there is. It's not there is some external power which is trying to stop you from saying certain things or talking about certain subjects. They have instilled a kind of fear in your hearts and your mind that you don't even dare to think such things. If you talk about North Korea, people don't even think about overthrowing the government there. Now from the outside we realize that we hope that somebody or bunch of people would cause a revolution there so that this crazy dictatorship is gone. But then again, the people have been taken so far back away from their primal instincts to serve curiosity. to question everything, that people don't even, think that when the government tells us 1 plus 1 is 1, that's what North Korean government tells us, you know. And they even have a story about it, that our supreme leader, once he was essentially studying the Western mathematics, as they say, because that's what they say. These all scientific and mathematic concepts, they are all Western. The white man is trying to fuck us over. And they said that when our supreme leader was, essentially thinking about how and why they say 1 plus 1 is 2, he essentially saw that, he did an experiment of sorts. They think he's a scientist, this fat ass motherfucker. Anyway, so he did an experiment. And what happens? So essentially, the supreme leader said he took 1 drop of water and put it onto another drop of water, and that becomes 1 big drop of water. So by that logic, 1 plus 1 is 1, and not 1 plus 1 is 2. I mean, if you think this is crazy, you have no idea what's going on in the world, or how crazy or insane, illogical, and corrupted world can be, but that's what he said. So the math is essentially invented by the white man. Think about that shit. Insane, right? So this is what happens. I'm just trying to give an example that people are not even able to get to the information. We're talking about information, man. Those people are not even able to get the facts right, because all the facts are, they are not even being taught the critical thinking skills which you might need to even able to absorb any kind of information, any kind of fact, be it scientific, be it real. And of course, it might be a bit of exaggeration to compare, things that are happening in India with North Korea, but I'm just talking about the phenomena and how people's perceptions and mindsets often get, corrupted if they are not even taught the basics. Because at the end, every person who is born they're a blank slate. And it is the job of society to give them education, to give them ability to see what things are, how things work, how you should deal in situations. Now, there are primal instincts, but then again, even a bear has a primal instinct, that is to fight and dominate. But, through starvation, through fear of beating, you can make a bear ride a cycle in a circus. And you can say, oh, the bear is being fed every day, he does not have to fight predators. And so, by that logic, the bear belongs in a circus, he's having a happy life. Why should we let him go? But anybody in their right mind would, understand the problem with this situation. Had you not subjected the bear through all this trauma and all this control over the bear, had you not taken away its rights, its due rights to be able to, roam freely in the wild, the bear would never be, riding a bicycle. They don't even need to ride a bicycle. A bicycle can only go so fast, but the bears can run at crazy speeds. Crazy speeds, man. They can even run up a tree way faster than a human being can climb a tree. That's what's up. It kind of freaked me out, when I saw a bunch of videos that bears can actually run up a vertical tree. This fucking 200 pound, 300 pound, 400 pound, fuck pounds, man, 200 kilos. 300 kg bear, 400 kg bear can actually climb trees way faster than you and I can, even with our 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 kilograms. We can barely get up a tree, but these bears can. So they won't be riding a bicycle. Similarly, there are a lot of new news anchors who might not be, saying the things that they are saying right now, had it not been for an instilled fear in their minds, which essentially, takes away their critically thinking skills. So this is not, trash any particular government, because at the end, it is the nature of the ones who govern. And it is a duty of the governed to make sure we do not give them so much power that they take away our basic rights. Similarly, again, talking of Supreme Court, I just saw that, a bunch of days ago, they said that electoral bonds are unconstitutional, which they really are, because of course, if you do not have I would say, a mandate to write your name or tie your name to a particular set of money, then that money is unaccountable. And if this money can be, used to give donations to a particular party, well, it might, skew away their incentives, give them some new incentives, which might cause them to behave in a particular way, which the people might not want them to. They might get incentives and goals which the ones who have elected them in the first place might not get. So, of course, I think it's a good thing that Supreme Court, took away that thing, deemed them unconstitutional. But I think, we as the people also have a responsibility to ensure that the peoples that we elect, people who put them in charge of all the legislature and taking care of the country, the people do not get their incentives malaligned. And at the end, because the ones who are elected, well, they have just one job, to serve the people. And as per this, broadcast bill I was talking about, and you're already aware that through our Aadhaar cards and PAN cards and all the cards, all the 100 cards that you need, you have a voter ID, then you also have a PAN card, then you also have Aadhaar card, so many fucking cards. And now you also might need a GPS card because Fastag is being killed, and they're talking about a geotag, right? The government always know where a vehicle is, wherever you're going, so you don't even need to go through a toll booth. We'll just keep deducting money from your account. You make a wrong turn on the right, instead of going to Haryana, you go to Punjab. Well, I hope you don't go to Punjab these days, man. It's crazy there. But if you happen to do so, and we don't want you there, well, we might deduct any kind of amount from your bank accounts. Now, it doesn't matter if there are roads there or not, because if you're talking about just locations, one could be off-roading, man. Right? Think about if you're off-roading in Uttarakhand and you just happen to cross the river in your big SUV, and you might be in Nepal's territory, because there are certain villages, where the particular half of the village which is on the left side of the river, that's Indian territory, and the same part of the village which is just on the right side of the river, that's Nepal. So can it be deemed that you went out of country without getting a visa? Can immigration fuck you over just because they know exactly where your car is, or you just made a wrong turn? Now I understand that there are certain elements who do not have India's best interest in mind. So some of these measures might be used against them, but make no mistake, people, because eventually these measures, these powers, these tools to control the people will be used against the people who have chosen to elect them in the first place, rightfully or wrongfully. I was seeing, of course, after going through this video and everything, people in the comments were mostly scared. Now, I would say, there is a fair bit of fear mongering that's going around this topic. Some people are just trying to, sell the fear. Those are one of the core human emotions. The way I see it, love, hate, and fear. These are the three basic emotions, and everything else is just built on top of that. You love yourself, that's love. You love yourself too much, that becomes pride. You keep loving yourself too much and you start hating others, you might go into the territory which is ego. But at the end, we have these three basic, emotions: love, hate, and fear. That's just my possible, or rather my hypothesis. I'm no psychologist, but given all the things that I've heard, that's where I stand. That's where I would put my flag. I mean, I don't have my own flag. Usually I just use the Indian flag, which is good enough, because what else would you do, right? So yeah, fear is being sold right now. But that does not mean that, of course, I do see the tendency of all the governments that have existed, as far as you can go back in the history, be it the kings, be it the ancient Greeks. I mean, those people might have been the only exception in this case, because not only they created democracy, they also created a world where democracy would actually work. Because of course, right, democracy, while of course this broadcast bill is a straight attack on this, our democracy, whatever remains of this, of course, right? Because there's not much left. That's what I feel like. So, democracy, the problem with democracy is that, sure, you say that democracy just means that people will elect the ones who will govern them. They will vote for the government. But what happens when you don't actually have a good choice of candidates? When you do have, when on the each side of the spectrum, be it the left, be it the right, be it the India Alliance, be it the NDA. What happens when both of the camps seem way too extreme? You know, things should be perfectly balanced. Things in moderation is how usually the life prevails. That's how you go towards a betterment, bright future, and all those utopian concepts. It only happens when things are balanced. Be it in the case of health, be it in the case of well-being, mental health, physical health, biological health. Be it the way you want to live your life. You need to have a balanced diet. You need to have a balanced account statement or your ledger. You should be earning, but you should also be spending, because of course, if you don't spend it, sooner or later, even inflation will just take down the value of your money. You might have 1 crore, but if inflation keeps going up and up, that 1 crore might not be worth what it is worth today. So the number will remain, but the value will go down. So of course, you should spend it a little bit. Have some fun. It's a short life. It's a really short life. So have some fun with it, That sort of thing. Moderation should be there, but what happens when you don't have any candidate which, seems like they are kind of moderate, balanced, and they are kind of in the center? Too much to the right, too much to the left. Eventually it's a whole circle, right? You keep going left, and you will end up right. And you keep going right, you end up left. So the best way to be is be in the center, equidistant from all the insanities, and be in a position to make a judgment for yourself, to make a right call. Now we can debate what is right and wrong, but that's a topic for another day. If I get to it, that is. Yeah. Hold on a second. Let me just have some water, people. You too should have some water. It's getting crazy hot in Delhi already. I think we are about to touch 31 degrees this week, and it's not even March yet. It's gonna be a crazy hot summer. It better not, go above 45 degrees, but I think it might, reach 48, 49, even 50. Half century, motherfucker. So let's have some water and prepare our throats for that. Looks like even my computer needs some water. This chipset is getting hot. I can hear the fans running. I hope you cannot hear the fans running. Or if you can, I hope it's not ruining the experience, ruining the adventure that you are on with me. Yeah. So, as I was saying, as a part of this broadcast bill, all your biometric data, that biometric data can be used against you. You might not even, be vulnerable to the traditional kind of legal jurisdictions and legal actions that people might take. Because right now they have that's crazy, right? One thing that most other countries don't have is their eye scan. Their retinas are not linked to their official government IDs. We have our thumbprints, our eye scans, retina scans. I think they also have our blood group. Now, all they need is the DNA. Just take away my DNA, right? Why do you even need me in the country? Or why do you need the population? Take DNA from every person, clone a DNA, and sooner or later we might be able to create new people just from their DNA. So you create your own people and you rule over your people. Fuck the ones who elected you in the first place. Let's not, pay too much attention to them. That might seem like an exaggeration, but that's the thing. If both the candidates are on the extreme ends, you have to take into account the possibilities of extremism which lie on each side. So what do you do? I've been thinking about, who to vote for a really long time, and I have not come to a conclusion yet. I'm willing to take a risk, but, as things go with risks, you might not win, you might not come out on top. So you have to decide. Do you want incompetence? Or do you want maniacal competence? Neither is good. Neither is good. Let me give you an example, right? Recently, if you've heard about it, there's a guy, whose last name is Nalvani something. So essentially, he was the only opposition to Vladimir Putin. And he was put in prison in Russia, as I said, one of the most extreme prisons where people are sent to die. And his autopsy has said that there were bruise marks all over his body, which might mean he was, beaten to death, or there might be some force involved from the outside. And of course, his wife is, blaming Putin for his death. There are some people, who are going to the outcry, but the media is so heavily censored there. Most people are not even aware of it, or if they are not, getting to know all the fine details which might make them think that it was politically motivated. And that's the kind of thing that I'm talking about. Let me give you an example, right? You might have heard about the horrific things that are going on in the Sandesh Khali of West Bengal. And I don't even want to discuss that how a female chief minister can let other females go through all that hellish situations that they're in. Because at the end, their chief minister, Didi, some people even go as far as saying her Dalli Didi. I am not that people, but I'm just telling you. That's what some people are saying. And she essentially have absolute power there. And as the saying go, power corrupts. And absolute power corrupts absolutely. So she does not even have an incentive to do anything about it, because as long as people keep voting for her, nothing's gonna come to place. And you might not have even seen a video that a journalist who actually went into those areas where Dalit women and essentially all Hindu women are being kidnapped, tortured, raped, maimed, used as objects, slaves and everything. This reporter actually went there, but the Bengal police just dragged him out, arrested him while he was on camera in the mic and doing journalism. And of course, lucky for us that we were able to see this video on the internet and people could actually, make a thing out of it, or it went viral. But what happens if, say, somebody from that mindset, from TMC, right, Trinamool Congress, what happens when this person gets to decide that, why don't I just use the powers of this broadcast bill and make sure this video is not sent, but of the video of the journalist, or even the plight of the women, anything about this topic has to be scrubbed off the internet, and anybody who dares to share it, or even tweet it, like it, as per this broadcast bill, this person who is not only just sharing it, who's even viewing it, liking it, that people too could be, given or sent to jail, given a huge fine. Their mobiles, the mobile which they used to like that video or retweet that video, share that video, could be confiscated, taken away, never to be given back to its rightful owner. And as we, the citizens of the people, of this country, we are the owners of this country. So what happens when the ones in power take away this country, confiscate it essentially from us, and do not have us, or rather give us the access to have it back, to do with it as we see fit. Now I have also, talked about a lot. It's the same thing with your vehicles. Government, once your vehicle is out of registration, you might not be even driving it. The so-called agents of the law will come and take it away without even giving you a notice. Take your possession away. Not only they are refusing that you cannot use your possessions, but we might even just confiscate them and crush them essentially. And this is the problem. We are in quite a predicament, as I said. Who do you vote for? Incompetent traders or maniacal competent people? Competent maniacs and incompetent traders. Is really that the kind of choice we want? Sure, people have the power to vote and choose whoever they want to vote for. Well, at least we do at the moment, but is it much of a choice? I mean, being the great country that India is, we have produced so many bright minds, from all the way from Aryabhatta to Ramanujam to Shakuntala Devi to the late and great APJ Abdul Kalam. From these people, even a lot of people who are of Indian origin, but they are ruling all the rather heading some of the biggest corporations. Pichai, Sundar Pichai, Nadella, in the Microsoft, even the head of Adobe right now. They're all people of Indian descent. So Indian people have this, ability to create such highly motivated, influential, intellectual, such competent people. And these are the choices we have to vote for when it comes to being the leader of this country. I keep saying, right, there is a lot of people who are talking about making India a great superpower. Well, China is also superpower. Do we want to become like China? And on a side note, let's stop saying that China is our neighbor. Because as far as I know, China is not India's neighbor. India shares its boundaries with two kingdoms, the kingdom of Tibet and the kingdom of Xinjiang. Both of these kingdoms, were invaded by the Chinese people, Chinese folks. And today, they call them China. So by default, since they have captured our neighbors, they think that we are, their land neighbors or geographical neighbors. But we are not. We must keep this idea alive. Must keep Tibet alive. Must keep the memory of Xinjiang alive. China is not our neighbor. They have just taken over the houses and the kingdoms and the land and the people and the culture of these two kingdoms. They're not our neighbor. And if we are going down that path, well, of course, the things that China did were in some ways unprecedented. To take a population of 800 million people, starving with poverty, just starving, not having enough supplies, healthcare, education, food, and just took them here to become the second largest economy in the world. Of course, it increased the standard of the people. People can now buy things and afford some things, but we all know how shit goes in China. And I'm not even talking about, creating crazy viruses which they have purposely or unpurposely, unwillingly let out in the world, but all the things on all the crimes against humanity that they are doing right now. You're not free to talk or even criticize the government. You don't even get to ask permissions. And as per this broadcast bill, it seems like we'll be not just one step closer towards being China 2.0. We might just be even 10 steps closer there. Because as per this rule, the government might have the ability to probe into people's life just because they, find them inconvenient. While as the people will not get any such rights to, even file RTIs for the people who have reportedly or reported the person or taken a decision against them. The people might not even have that right. So all the rights are reserved for the government. It seems like, all the powers that Indian Constitution gives us, it's about to just be reserved only for the ones in power. And the masses, well, they might be given a new constitution. Happens after amendments and new acts and everything. Well. It's been about 40 minutes, and while I did not plan to make it all about this broadcast bill, it is one of the most important topics to be talked about right now. And most people are not even discussing this. These news outlets and media. Now, of course, it might seem like I'm criticizing the ones in power too much right now, but make no mistake, I feel the same way and same thing about, the ones who are not in power right now and they're hoping to get elected. Because at the end, they're playing the same game. These rules and these, all the, legalities, they will not be subjected to these things. I don't think, somebody will be reporting any tweet that Rahul Gandhi made. Rahul Gandhi will not be, put in jail for that. Because of course, he's a political leader. But anybody who shares his tweets or, votes against some other government, be it the state government, be it the central government, those people will be subject to that persecution. And that's the thing, which makes me think, that what actually is the solution. And as I was saying about democracy, there are a lot of flaws in democracy. People who are democracy, see, ancient Greeks came up with the concept of democracy. But the thing is, back then, their entire population were basically, given education, given the tools to think things through critically. Information was not suppressed. There were no kings and there were no capital punishments or putting people in jail for asking questions. So, in a society where people are well informed, where they can see through the lies, where they can, deduce their own conclusions, they can ask questions and they will get answers about those questions. In that society where there is not much of propaganda going on, where there is no tribalism in the air, in that state, democracy might even be, I would say, one of the best and most ingenious concepts to come about. But in a population which is as big as our country, and of course people are subjected to all these political narratives and political propaganda and everything, in that case you need even a greater freedom of speech. You need people to battle out their bad ideas, to share the stupid opinions and facts or perspectives that they might have. And then the smart people who actually know what are the essential objective realities behind these topics and these matters, they will set the record straight. Let them, set the record straight. But just, taking away the people's right to say things which are wrong, I don't think that's fuck about, all the constitutional things and all that. I don't think it's even human civil liberties. The basic liberties, right? The Constitution gives us certain rights and certain liberties, but there are certain human rights which are, I think, far greater than the constitutional rights, which is essentially the right to breathe. As they say, even breathing in certain parts of the city is not free right now. Crazy, right? Now, let me play the devil's advocate for a second, Now, if I was playing the defense of the other side, I would say, there are a lot of crazy people, a lot of criminals, a lot of terrorist activities that are going on. The youth is getting radicalized and towards a peaceful community, as they say. Concepts of love jihad and all that. People are even, some crazy farmers were even talking about assassinating the prime minister. Holy fucking shit. Put this motherfucker in jail. But that does not give you the right to take away the people. Or rather, it does not give you the power to take away the rights of the people to say, I do not agree with the PM. Oh, he lied about this. Oh, he's not right. Which is not the same thing as, giving death threats to a sitting prime minister. But of course, if you're willing to lose an inch, you will lose a foot. And then you will lose the arm. And then you will lose your head. Now, be it metaphorical or be it literal, it seems like, people are trying to make sure that we lose our heads metaphorically first, so that eventually they can take our heads away, literally. Fucking crazy. Now that I have, mentioned Russia, let me say one more thing. Recently, Vladimir Putin, the Russian president, he said that Russia is very close to making a vaccine for cancer as a whole. Did I talk about this? I don't know. But it'd be a pretty good, good world if actually cancer was completely curable. Of course, it's a host of hundreds of diseases, and cancer is a blanket statement, but man, if I can smoke more freely without having to worry about all that, any kind of cancer or tumor building up, I can just get a vaccine. That sounds like a pretty good deal. And even if you have heard about, there are some rumors and myths about the true ancient culture, not the ones these motherfuckers keep talking about. All this, people have even actually, forgotten what Sanatan Dharam is. They'll tell you, oh, we are doing it all for the Hindus and Sanatanis, but even those people don't agree or even understand what the true concepts of ancient Indian civilization was. And there are concepts that, frequencies, vibrations, they are very powerful. Not only they can, help you get more control over your mind and body, but they can even be used to take away, certain diseases. That includes cancer. Most of that knowledge has been lost thanks to, getting pillaged by other communities and other religions, especially the Abrahamic religions. The Abrahamic religions are, where there is only one God. Jesus, Christianity, Allah, and Islam, Moses, for Judaism. Luckily, Sanatan does not follow that. There are hundreds of gods for anybody who wants to live a particular lifestyle. You want to drink? Well, this God does not allow you to drink. But this God does. Go worship him. Oh, you do not want to worship a man? That's okay. We got hundreds of goddesses. Worship them. You do not agree with something this God says or the way he lived his life, There are people who do not think that, I do not want to worship Lord Ram. Okay, go worship somebody else. So the concept is nice. Of course, I stand against all religions, but you see, there are certain truths which are hidden in the ancient Indian scriptures, which have not even, decoded till today. Even today, most of the knowledge that ancient Indians had has not been decoded. You see, because Sanskrit, there are actually 3 versions of Sanskrit. One is the modern Sanskrit that we use and hear about. Then there was the Vedic Sanskrit, which was when Vedas were written, which was essentially when the time of King Bharat. That's where the name of Bharat and name of the country comes from. But there was then yet even an ancient Sanskrit, which goes back even thousands and thousands of years, and we do not actually know how to decode that. Most of the scrolls and ancient scrolls that we have found about Hindu or Sanatani scriptures in Tibet, they have not even been, decoded even till this point, because we don't have any translation mechanism. The only reason we were able to, decode ancient Greece, ancient Latin is because we had a Rosetta Stone. Rosetta Stone, right? So Rosetta Stone is essentially where the same thing has been written in 4 to 5 different languages. So if you can read even any one of the language, and you can, compare it to other languages. Like, the man is a moron. Aadmi chutiya hai. If I say both of these statements in 2 languages, rather it's the same statement, I say it in Hindi, I say it in English. If you understand both of these languages, now, even if I say it in Sanskrit, you might not be able to speak Sanskrit, but you can use these 2 languages and compare the words in the alphabets to decode Sanskrit. But we do not have a Rosetta Stone for the ancient Sanskrit. Maybe which is why all the knowledge has been captured. I think about all these people talking about things on the internet. We're like, oh, this is the ancient culture. This is the ancient culture. I'm like, shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. All right. A culture which gave you Ayurveda, the culture that gave you Kama Sutra, the culture where, old people thousands of years ago could figure out the exact distance. They wouldn't be saying about all these shenanigans. They won't be saying that, oh, build a particular temple, or rather at least not let that temple be a means of political power. Always be careful of the people who are doing 2 things. Always be careful. A person who is using just religious terms to serve their own purpose. If anybody tells you that, these are the particular rules of this religion, this is what we follow, and all the other people are our enemies, do not trust this person. But then again, do not also trust the person who talks about giving you things for free and you do not have to work for it. Which brings me back to the argument that who the fuck do we vote for? Both sides are extreme. Both have their good sides and their bad sides. But there is no ideal way out of this. There is no ideal way out of this. It just means that what kind of sacrifice are you willing to make? And if you're not aware, paying attention, if you're not, quick to jump onto the latest news and try to make sense of it, You might not even be able to see what's coming. Might not be able to see what's coming. And that's crazy. That's scary. But of course, the people see it. The moment they see it, they just start saying, oh, the mother of democracy is dead. Well, first of all, I don't think democracy is an Indian concept, not to the best of my knowledge. But even then, democracy is not dead yet. But you see, democracy just means that you get to vote for who's gonna rule over you. You get to vote what kind of crazy structure will be forced upon you. It might not be a structure you desire. The ones who you have elected might not do the things you want. It just means you get to vote. Famously, Joseph Stalin, the maniacal genocidal idiot, nutbag, piece of trash, human garbage, Now, of course, given all those bad things he did say something very wise. It's not that the vote which counts, it's the one who counts the vote that matters. Now, you might think I'm talking about the EVM machines, which maybe I am, maybe I'm not. But he did use this principle to kill millions of his own people. And all the other hundreds of millions of people supported it. But then again, even if you talk about some other leaders in the past who were not as corrupted, or rather I would say wronged, following a wronged ideology of communism, even the people who were following, capitalism, they too have committed horrific deeds in the past. It makes us think, as they say that politics is a gutter essentially. And no matter how good the person it seems to you, they will always have ulterior motives. Because anybody who wants to control other people, what kind of a person that is? Do you want to associate with that person? But what happens when only those two kind of people are the ones who you can actually vote for? Should we have a new candidate, new party? The last time we had a new political party as well, when Aam Aadmi Party came into play, and we all know what a disaster that has been. Most people in Delhi and Punjab do know that, but then again, those are small voices which might not be, a large part of the noise that you hear on the internet. But then again, these voices are not saying much, maybe because they do not feel that their voices will be heard. Or maybe they are scared to say the things that they actually feel. And eventually they might stop thinking about those things. And that is the problem. Taking away free speech means taking away freedom of thought. So that's what I see about this bill. So vote for whoever you want, but file a fucking petition. Let's make sure this, file a petition, do some protesting, do some, I don't know. I don't even know, what do you do? Should all of us just, start filing petitions to the Supreme Court and saying, hey, take away this bill, take away this bill? Because it doesn't matter who is the Prime Minister in 50 years or 100 years. If these kind of tactics have been put into place, sooner or later, no matter who you vote for, they will use this against you. They will. You can be sure of that, Of all the things that you see in the world, there are only a few things that you can be certain of. And this is one of those things. Look for the ones who choose to relinquish their power, not to centralize it further. Yeah. Let's wrap it up there, Hopefully nothing crazy will happen in the meantime. And next week or next to next week, we'll have a light-hearted episode where things does not seem as crazy. Who knows, man? Who knows? Next week the podcast might be off. I have some other things to tend to. But we'll get back on the horse as soon as we can. As soon as we can. Who knows? I mean, by the time we are back for yet another episode of Adventures with Truth, the government might have announced the election dates. A lot of new things will start happening around it. New protests, new problems, new fighting, new chaos. And then we might be bound to talk about those things. Hopefully not. Hopefully not, people. Keep your spirit alive and fight for the spirit of freedom. Democracy is cool and all, but fight for the spirit of freedom. Freedom of expression. The right to say, and then, by association, consequently, freedom of thought. The more the rules there are, the more there are ways to fuck you over using those rules. And on that note, I'll see you next time, people. I'll see you next time. Keep the spirit of freedom alive.